This presentation aims to be a bit different. So whereas here we talked about knowledge bases in general, in that case, I want to really get closer to actually what we could do with a solution. So the solution in itself is XWiki. So I'm going to talk a bit in general about XWiki, and then most of the presentation will actually be a demo of the functionality of the software to show you a bit what can be done with your data and how we can provide you with some tools in order to structure the data and potentially review it afterwards. And in the end of the presentation, if we have some time left, I would like to show you some screenshots of what can be done with XWiki in terms of like customization with some cases. So for example, I have some screenshots of SNCF, SCORE, HLS that we saw just before. Okay, so maybe let's start. Let's dive right into it. So for this presentation, we're going to go with so just before we start the presentation, on my side, I'm going to be using an installation of XWiki 12.6.4, which is one of the latest stable versions that we have that we have released of XWiki. You can download the test instance on try.xwiki.com. You can also try it on our cloud. It's going to be a slightly different version of XWiki. However, the main features that I'm going to showcase today will be there, so you will not be you will not have a big change in terms of what you can do. So it's not a big issue if you have a little difference in version. So first, we've not talked that much about XWiki actually up to now, and so I would like to go back on it and present a bit more the software. Maybe some of you, I'm sure that some of you already know it. So XWiki, it's a software that is based on the wiki model. So the wiki model in itself, it's very simple. It's the idea of having a website with different pages and links in between. So, and with these links, you create kind of a web of knowledge, and people can navigate between documents using so one link in one document gets through another, etc., etc. And that's how you get back to your content. The concept also of the wiki is that usually content will be open by default, so everyone will have the possibility to contribute. We'll see that sometimes it can be very different. And it comes with some features that are quite common in wiki engines, such as, for example, history, which is actually key if you want to manage your information. The idea is that whenever someone does a modification to a document, the modification is logged and you know who did what when, which is actually very interesting if you want to roll back to some previous version. We have also some comments, annotations, etc., etc. So these are kind of standard features. The thing is that, so with XWiki, what we are trying to do is to build XWiki so that it's easy to use for organizations. And so from the previous definitions that I gave, maybe you see some elements that are kind of contradictory with the use inside of a company. But actually, with XWiki, we are trying to provide some of the features that are missing with the straight definition of a wiki, so that you can use it in your workplace. So the first one is potentially the fact that you can put rights everywhere in your wiki. Make sure that some parts of your wiki are restricted to only some specific users, etc., to just simply control the access to some knowledge. It comes with also some integrations that we will see afterwards, and also the platform itself can be branded to match kind of your company guidelines. So it's a very simple feature, but actually the best modification that we do in order to integrate with your organization comes from the extensibility of a wiki. The idea is that XWiki in itself is fully extensible, meaning we come with a catalog of around 750 extensions that are open source as XWiki in itself. And we have this capability to basically change the way that the interface of XWiki looks, depending on the use case that we have. Maybe change the behavior of the wiki. I was talking in the QA session about the fact that maybe if you are storing some legal document, you want a specific process to validate a legal document before it's considered as public. So we have this possibility to change the behavior of one document, like make sure that you need to review it by someone else, make the document being reviewed by someone else before considering official. So that kind of functionalities that are actually key if you want to have a knowledge base that adapts to your needs. And so if you see with this idea, what we are trying to do with XWiki is we have this idea that everyone will have specific needs in terms of knowledge management because it depends on your company, what you are doing, etc. And in the end, what we are trying to do with XWiki is make sure that we can adapt to your needs in terms of knowledge management. We have a version of XWiki that is fully usable by default, for which we can put some content, of course, and manage it. There is no problem with that. However, if you want really the platform itself to really match all your processes, that's something that we can do. And that's very important. And all of this is done with with XWiki, which is and I didn't mention it before, but which is an open source software. So open source in itself is kind of at the heart of our company. We believe that doing open source software is important because it allows us to have a product that actually matters and stays indefinitely, that is not really specifically bound to our company or what we do. We believe in this idea of developing a community around our software in order to help it to be improved over the years. So this was more of a generic presentation of XWiki. Now let's go into the second part, which will be actually the main part of this presentation, which will be about structuring content. So the thing is that we saw in the previous presentation. So in this kind of 3 steps tutorial, we saw the fact that structuring content was key, and usually we have a lot of questions about how to actually structure it. Like, how does it work in real life? Like, is it really easy to do? And so that's what I would like to show you. The idea is that so just very quickly, the idea is that XWiki works based on content, on document types, as I described them in the previous presentation. The idea is that each document can contain its own documentation, so you can have a meeting notes that will contain a field for having the date of the meeting, maybe the participants of the meeting, and etc., and the content of the meeting, things like that. And these fields, maybe they can change over time. You might say that at some point, my meeting note, I want to also add, I don't know, the person that requested the name of the person that requested the meeting for the first for the first part. And at that point, you will add this new field to all your meeting notes, and it will be it will add another metadata that will just have to be filled in when you create a new meeting notes. And this idea is that this idea of document types is really key because we try to integrate these within the core of XWiki, so it's integrated within the search of the wiki and within the navigation, etc., etc. So yes, let's dive into it. I would say So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to share my screen. Up. So share. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen right now. Yes, I can see it. So here I'm on the interface of XWiki that you see by default. Really, when you start XWiki for the first time, this is what you see. And what you have here in front of you is just a document. XWiki is made based on the idea of documents. We only store documents. We don't have this notion of folders that there is in here. We only work with documents. And so so I'm on the homepage of the wiki. What I'm highlighting here is the content of my document. Then I have the title of it, and then I have some other information. So on the left, I have a panel that shows the different applications that are installed in my wiki. So applications are when we create a document type, we usually say that we create an application for it. So when we will create, for example, here I'm going to go through the process to create this kind of structure for a meeting. When I'm going to go through this process, actually we will create a new application that will be listed here. And you will see that just after. So you have some panels on the left and on the right that allows you to have some information about your wiki that can be configured, of course. And then you have at the bottom some comments, maybe some attachments of the page, the history of the page itself, which is also very important, as we said, etc. And if I want to edit the page, well, I can. Here I have what we call an inline editor. So I can change the title of the page. I can add some content, and it's when I save, it's automatically updated. Well, and it becomes available to anyone. So yeah. So let's focus more on this problematic of creating structured data. So in order to create structured document or document types, as they call them, in order to create these document types, we have a tool within XWiki which is called App Within Minutes. So it allows you to create actually these applications, these document types within minutes, very quickly. And so I'm going to go through this and kind of show you what are the different steps. And you will see that it's kind of quite easy actually to get started with. So I'm going to go in more applications and create your own. If you have a test instance on your side, maybe it could help you find this entry. And then so I'm on the homepage of Apprentice, and I will click on create an application. And so as I've talked about meeting notes during this whole presentation, I'm going to make an application that is about meeting notes. Well, let's call them meetings. So this is going to be the name of my application. And click on the next step. And the second step of this assistant is about structuring your data. So here, remember, we are switching from a simple document, which just a title and the content, to a document that has multiple fields. And so each field will correspond to one information regarding that depends on the type of document that you are working on. So, for example, here for my meeting, I want to have a title for my meeting. So yes, or maybe it can become the name of the meeting, maybe. So it's the name here. We will have a date, of course, which will be the date at which the meeting has been held. We can have maybe users, a list of users that are the attendees. Here, and I want to have multiple users, so I'm going to check multiple select here. And finally, let's keep it simple for now. So I'm going to have a text that will be the description of the meeting itself. Okay. And finally, I want to have the content of the meeting. And so the content itself, it will be really the meeting notes themselves. So let's call them actually the meeting notes. or maybe just the notes. Okay, so here I'm all set. I have the structure for my information, and so here, if I can fill in these fields to say, okay, for example, I want, so I don't want to have a default date. It doesn't make sense, but I want to have a default name for my meeting. I can have default description also. Something when we create the meeting by default, we will propose this content to the user by default. So okay, I have the structure. Let's go to the next step now. No, we have a couple of information to fill in, which do not really matter if you are just trying out. It's tricky, mostly in order to define where you want to create your meetings in XWiki, how do you want them to be located, etc., etc. So you have the possibility to choose an icon for your meeting. Let's say the page, it's really fine, and what will be the when you create a new meeting, what do you need to indicate to your user? What will be shown on the screen of the user when he wants to create a new meeting? So let's say, for example, a new meeting. Okay, I'm gonna leave the other options as is, just keeping it simple. And now the last step is actually customizing a specific page of that we will create in XWiki, which will have this possibility to actually list all the meetings that are registered within XWiki. So and here I can say, so I can give a title for this page, and I can say, okay, this is the list of all my meetings. Exclamation mark. And so behind under this description, we will have some table which will list all the meetings, and we actually have the possibility to choose what will be the columns of this table. And so we choose these columns based on actually what are the fields that we define within our meeting. So for example, I defined the name of my meeting. I defined also maybe the date and the attendees, and I want to show to display them in my table. I'm going to remove the previous fields because I don't need them actually, and I'm going to click just finish. And just like that, what we've done is that we've created an application. So we created a document type, which is a type that allows to store meetings. And we've created really the infrastructure, the structure that is needed in order to store meetings within our wikis. And so when I'm on this page, I have the possibility to add a new entry, to create a new meeting. But usually a user, when it's browsing on the different page of XWiki, it will only see the edit and create buttons that are on the top. So when I'm at the user and I click on create, for example, I will have the possibility to choose which type of page that I want to create. So these are pages that are provided by default within XWiki to show what we can do in terms of page content. And here I have my meeting, so the structure that I just created that is selected. So let's create a page. I'm going to call it my first meeting, maybe. Okay. I need to click on it. It's better. And now what we see is that I have this kind of form that shows up. And it's very different if we look into it. Let me take a standard page of XWiki, for example, the sandbox. Usually a page will be like just content and one title. Here what we see is that we have different fields that will be that will allow me to fill in the information that are important for my meeting. So for example, I can set up a date. I don't know, at that time, for example, I can put the attendees, so it can be a list of users. Here on my wiki, I'm the only one, so I can only invite myself. And then I can put some description. So this is my meeting description. and then some notes. And I can save, and now I have my meeting that is made. I can edit it again if needed. It's so in the same way. And if I'm going back on the home page of my meetings, I can see that on the table here, which is listing all the meetings that I have registered within my wiki, I can see the entry that I just created. And so what is very important here is that based on that, actually I have the possibility to filter all the meetings. I can say that I want the meetings that are due, that have been done yesterday or only in the past 30 days. I can also filter based on the attendees. I can see all the meetings to which the administrator has been part of, which is not really interesting here because there is only the administrator that has been invited to a meeting, or I can just filter by the name. And so this is one first way that of navigating through this information, and it has been created by default when we create the structure of a meeting. But what's important, what's interesting also is that if I'm searching for if I'm using the search engine in XWiki, this notion of document type is also integrated within the search engine. So here I've searched for the term first because it's in the title of my meeting, so I know that it's there. And I got also a couple of other results. So for example, I got a page that is here by default in XWiki to show you how XWiki behaves, which is describing Frank Capra. We have another page which is the sandbox, which has the name first in it. And what's interesting is that, for example, I have one property in the search. So here on the right, I can filter my search, and I can say I want to only see meetings in there. And so here I see only pages that are meetings that are corresponding to my search. And it allows to actually do search of content much faster than if I had to just seek through all the documents that would match the term first. So this is the idea. Now maybe I can show you very quickly how it behaves with an application of meeting that is a bit more, let's say, used. So I'm going to go in on one wiki instance, which is a bit special. So this is the internal wiki that we are using within one team at XWiki. And we have one document type, which is a type meeting. So we have one application that has some of our meetings, and we put it in base recently, so we currently don't have that much in there. And so you see that here, so we have a bit more fields, of course. That's because the application is more polished. And so we can say that, okay, this meeting, let's see that all the meetings that have been finished, maybe. And so we can access one meeting. And then when we edit the meeting, we see that basically the layout of the page is a bit different. And we also have the possibility to set some of the fields that are more specific to the meeting itself. So it's really flexible, and the idea is that it can adapt to your needs. So most of the time when you will be using XWiki, for example, if you want to store meeting notes in XWiki, we have an application for that that we provide as part of XWiki SaaS that allows you to store this meeting, which is actually doing exactly what which is the same application as I'm showing here. So which gives you that kind of structure. But you can also apply that to the different types of documents that you are using. For example, we can have a type of document that will be about your project, and for each of your project, you can describe some information like, okay, who is handling the project, who is the project leader, when it started, how it is going, etc., etc., etc. And you can define your own type like that. So this is the goal was really to show you a bit what can be done in terms of data structuration within XWiki. Now, well, we saw a bit with the wiki that I just showed you what we can do, and I wanted to show you a bit more what can be done in terms of interface, in terms of modifying the wiki to make it work to your needs. And so this is this third part, which is going further basically in the exploration of the capabilities of the wiki. So I'm going to go just show you a couple of screenshots here. So this is kind of the one that you just saw. So it's actually very simple from compared to the UI of XWiki, that the interface of XWiki that I showed you in my demo. Here, this wiki that we are seeing here, it's actually part of our internal intranet at XWiki SAS. And what is very interesting is that we have set it up so that wherever you are on the intranet, you always have this top bar that is being shown with company, HR, sales, marketing, technology, etc., etc., etc. And this top bar allows you to jump very quickly between different silos, also different wikis, different spaces that are used by specific teams, so HR, marketing, etc., etc., and that are used for very different use cases. And so each team has the possibility to structure its own information, make it its own, adapt it to their needs, but it's still possible to jump from one team to another quite quickly. And then, so you have the homepage, which is just showing the members of the team, and maybe some bookmarks. And then here you have some shortcuts for specific parts of the wiki. So you see that we have a lot of meetings actually, because we have a lot of shortcuts that talk about meetings. But the idea is that each of these shortcuts will forward, well, we will bring you to a page that will list all the meetings for architects, all the meetings for what we call the front meeting, all the projects, etc. And for example, for us, a project is a structured document, as I showed you. An architect meeting is another structured document, etc., etc. And so we have this kind of structuration which helps us to navigate. However, we can have another structure that is better for another use case. And so, so this is, as I said, this is pretty close to what we have in an XWiki standard. Just the colors have been changed, but it's kind of still pretty close. If we look into what we did, for example, in the case of SNCF, I discussed a bit about it in the last presentation. So the idea of SNCF is that they are actually using XWiki in order to repair trains in technical centers. And so here you have the homepage of the application that they are using. So the bottom part of the page is mostly used for I would say news about generic news. The most important part is actually the top part, which allows you to select which type of train you are working on, which type of issue, on which type of train you are working, and it will pre-select the kind of issues that you can see. And once you've done this selection, you actually get to the business part of the application, the part that makes the technical centers more productive, I would say, to find the information. You have this screen with quite a lot of information indeed. A lot of navigation panels that allow you to basically filter in very different ways to see what are the issues on the trains that could apply to, for example, this very specific type of locomotive, maybe all the issues that can apply to this very specific feature of a train in general, and then you have this possibility to have the list of errors that apply to one specific feature. And this is done thanks to the fact that we are structuring data beforehand. When we describe an issue on this knowledge base, we are saying, okay, this issue can apply to that type of train. this issue can, so it's a critical issue. It applies to this very specific feature, and such and such. And with that, we are able to basically create these panels that help with the navigation of the user. So you have a free search if you want. You can have the table that I showed earlier here that maybe can help more users. And the idea is that here this interface is really made to be used by very different types of users. So you may have someone that likes to use the function panels in order to search for his issue. Maybe someone else that wants to use this table, or someone else that wants to use the free search. And you have the possibility to do it because the information is structured, and we make sure that it's for any kind of navigation, it's still easy to access. Maybe another type of document, another type of interface on which I'm not gonna spend too much time on. This is the case for Score, on which I discussed a bit in the first section. So Score has this this thing where they have some of their legal documents have to go through a process in order to be considered as official, and they are using the XWiki to write these legal documents. And so for them, we built a specific interface that allows to actually, when you write a document, it goes through a validation step. It is validated by a manager, and then it is considered as being published. So you can refer to it in other publications, etc., etc. I'm not going to go on the details of this interface because it might take a bit too much time. And finally, last point, last example that I wanted to show you, which is really very, very different from what we've seen up to now, even from SNCF or Store, is the case of so HLS here, where it's a public website, and you can see that so there was much changes in terms of design of the UI. And here we are still trying to make sure that indeed, so that there are in this project in particular, there are some needs to have a UI that corresponds to some graphical chart, but we also try to adapt the platform itself to the needs that it has in terms of searching for the information. So here we have a search engine that is heavily customized in order to be able to filter based on plenty of different filters in order to get to the information very quickly. And you have some quick links in order to access some part of the encyclopedia that I've talked about beforehand. So, yeah. So this gives you kind of an example of what can be done in terms of interface. Also, if after this talk, or maybe before, if you went on our website XWiki.com, it's also something that is running on XWiki. So it gives you kind of an idea of the different presentations that can exist. So we also arrived at the end of our second presentation for today. So to conclude, the three key elements that needs to be recalled for this session to me is that you don't need that much in order to start working with XWiki. You can actually use up within minutes to bootstrap your knowledge base and actually start creating structured pages very easily. And it can be very easy to do so. And afterwards, you can modify a bit the way that your structured pages look like, or we can help you doing that. You can also extend your knowledge base with different extensions, as we saw before. So around say 750 plus open source extensions, which will do a various amount of things. It can be integrating with a third-party system, adding a specific behavior to XWiki, etc., etc. So really, it all depends on what you want to do. And finally, one thing that is important that needs to be kept in mind is that we can always push XWiki further in order to tailor it to one specific need. Usually, if you want to start, it's usually not needed, but that seems something that is that can always be done. So thank you. So this was the second presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm going to take the questions in themselves separately. So question one is, I'd like to create a procedure knowledge base on my wiki in the shape of an FAQ. And how is it possible in XWiki? So actually, it's the case where so as I showed you, well, in the demo, we went into the process of creating a type of document for meetings. And in the end of the demo, I showed you actually on our end, we have a specific extensions that does it. Is the kind of the same for the FAQ document type, meaning that you could potentially create it throughout the Mint. However, we already have an extension of XWiki that exists in order to do so. So it could be easier to just install the extension. It's just a couple of clicks. And so you don't have to bother about creating the structure of it. Question two is there a way to manage the way user contributes, like workflow? So in order to manage the way that user contributes, it can be very different depending on what you want to do. And so in the case of XWiki, well, you can always, of course, change the rights of a document, and so define who can really contribute. But most of the case, if you are in the case where you really want to follow the contribution path of a user, we indeed have a specific extension which is called the publication workflow application, which is tailored to help managing the contribution of document in one specific way. So I will probably not go into details right now, but the idea is that this application enables you to create a document, edit it, and once you're sure of the content, well, once you're confident for the content, you can say, okay, I want to send this document to validation, and it will go to maybe someone else in the wiki, maybe an administrator or the manager, which will get an email and will say, okay, do I accept this modification of the document, or do I accept this new document? And then so it can get published and get available for everyone. So indeed, we have that kind of feature. Note that depending on your needs, this feature can be also tuned, and most of the time that's what we see. We take kind of this workflow extension and we tailor it to someone else's needs, because the needs can be very different from user to user. Step 3 is, I'm building an external knowledge base to provide information to clients. Is there a way to monitor what pages of our wiki are frequently visited by your client? Right now, I depend on the oral feedback, which I rarely get. Yes, indeed. So, so for that, it goes with the point 3 that I talked about in the previous part regarding reviewing. So usually what we recommend with XWiki is to actually connect XWiki to a third-party analytics service. So for example, we can connect it to Matomo, which is the new name of XWiki, if you don't know about it. So XWiki, it's an open source analytics platform which works really well. Or you can connect XWiki to Google Analytics more generally, or to any kind of other platform. And that way you have the possibility to see, especially in Matomo, what are the visits on each page, what is the flow of a user, so to which phase it goes, what are the search that are being performed, and that way you have some feedback on your wiki. And so in recent release, we also set up one new feature in XWiki. We used to have a feature that allowed the user to rate a page. So from with a system of stars usually, so 1 to 5 stars, depending on the quality of the content. And so we still have this feature, but we also released recently a new feature that allows to put likes on pages. So you can like a page or not like it. I don't think that we have the dislike option. And it allows you to have kind of a feedback of what are the pages that have been the most liked in your wiki, and potentially so evaluate which are the pages that are the least important. So let's continue. Is there any particular XWiki extension ready to help with the creation of a knowledge base? It really depends. It really depends on what you want to do with your knowledge base in the end. Meaning that we don't have a extension that will allow you in general to create a knowledge base. What you need to go through is through this step of analysis and structuration in order to say, okay, I know the content that I want to put in my wiki is this and that. Or well, the content that I want to put in my knowledge base is this one and that one. I want also to have this feature on my content. And based on that, so you can, so first you have the possibility to see what are the products that allow you to put such content and do the features that you want. And in your case, in the case of XWiki, what we usually recommend is that we will look at your need and tell you, okay, so in order to do this, you will need potentially this extension. In order to do that, this is something that is handled by default with XWiki, so you don't need anything, etc., etc. So there's not one big extension. However, it's more of a catalog of extension on which you can pick in order to say, okay, I want this, I want that, I want this feature, etc. So question 5, interesting, it's a bit more technical. Extensions are developed by XWiki developers, or is it community development? If it's community development, are these extensions supported in an enterprise environment? So that's a very good question. Indeed, in terms of extensions, we have 3 types of extension that we consider in the XWiki ecosystem currently. There are first there are the community extension indeed. So it's all the extensions that are developed by a community, well, someone in the community of XWiki, for which we know about because we look at the catalog of available extensions. But a new extension can arise at any point. Within these community extensions, there is a subset. So these community extensions, it's around, I would say that out of the 750, it's around 98% of the extension, something like that. Maybe around 95% of the whole extension ecosystem. And within this set of extensions, you have a subset, which are the extensions that are usually the most used in XWiki. And these are extensions that we call recommended extensions. Recommended extensions, it's a set of extensions on which the developers of XWiki, so the core developers of XWiki, will provide we will make sure that the extensions are bug-free and are working properly all the time, basically. So they have good community support. The last part is regarding the last extensions that are left are extensions that we provide as part of XWiki SaaS. So these are still extensions that are open source. However, they are not usually they are not free compared to the other extensions, the 720-ish extensions that you can install freely. Here you have to get a license to have them, but they are still open source. And on these ones, XWiki SaaS engaged to provide some bug fixes if you find some when using them. One last thing that is important, and because we didn't talk about support around XWiki, and it's an important point. So the way it works is that as XWiki is open source, you can usually set it up on your side for free, and it's usually it's one of the options, I would say. And on your side, as a part of a company, as part of XWiki SaaS, we provide some support contracts in order to make sure that you are getting up and running with your XWiki. And depending on the support contract that you are taking, we could we can engage into supporting some of the community extensions that you want to use for your specific needs, so that we make sure that your experience with XWiki is correct, and that you don't have any flow when using your XWiki, even though it's not an extension that we developed by yourself. So how do you manage files in XWiki? Can we do drag and drop? Also, how are they secured? Are they anonymized with rights on access? Also an interesting question. So how do you manage files in XWiki? By default, in XWiki, we have this capability. Basically, by default, in XWiki, when you want to send a file to XWiki, you attach it to a document. And so it gets into the attachment section of the document that you saw just under the document. This attachment section, we can choose to show it to the user or not. This is a kind of autoscope, I would say. Once you've uploaded your file, it gets indexed usually by the Solar, the search engine of the wiki. So meaning that, for example, if you upload a Word document which has the name first, for example, in it, and then you make a search, in your wiki, the search engine will tell you, okay, I found this page because this page has an attachment, which is a Word document which contains your work. And so it can be actually very powerful to have like a search within the documents. So this is the first way to do. Second way is to use one extension that we provide as part of XWiki SaaS, which is called the File Manager application, which allows you to create kind of a directory file structure in order to store your different files. So this is another option, and for that, so you can it's kind of more what you would see in more standard systems that are oriented toward managing documents and folders, I would say. Globally, yes, drag and drops works. If you want to upload an attachment in a page, for example, an image in a page, you can drag it and drop it within the content of the page, and it will upload it and display it. And drag and drop works also within the File Manager application. Are they anonymized with rights on the access? So no, by default, what we do with XWiki is that we, in the same way that we store the name of the person that uploaded the document, in the same way as we store the name of the person that modified a document. When you do an edit of the document, we store your name, and we say that administrators or, for example, Clément modified the document XXX at that time. And we do the same for attachments. So we know that you uploaded the version X of an attachment at this specific time. And it's important for us so that we keep some traceability. I think that, so we don't have any extension to my knowledge that does that. However, there is still the possibility to modify XWiki so that we can anonymize in some ways the documents. If you really want to have some anonymity, what I would suggest is actually looking to another software that we are doing, which is called CryptPad, which is way more focused on anonymity than XWiki, which is a way to actually store, which provides you a way to actually create documents and store them in a fashion that the server, when you save your document, the server is not able to decrypt the document. So it allows you to do a fully encrypted end-to-end zero knowledge collaboration between your documents. On XWiki encryption, we have a specific macro that allows you to encrypt some secrets, but usually it can be encrypted for some users. But if you have access, if you are administrator of the wiki, or if you have access to the server, usually you have a way to decrypt it. The thing is that in order to provide all the features that we have in XWiki, the server itself needs to have access to some of your data. For example, the search engine cannot work with encrypted documents. Question 7, does the search engine can give results on image screenshots that are in the page using OCR? So yes, this is something that we are trying to do. We have an extension which is called the OCR application on XWiki, which is based on an external library, which is Tesseract, if you know about it, which once integrated within XWiki makes it so that the search engine, when indexing document, is able to extract text from documents that are images, for example, and thus allowing you to search with OCR. I would say that this is a feature that we still need to test because it's more of a side effect of an extension to be integrated. But it's definitely something that is doable with the current state of this OCR application. So I will suggest that you try it out, and maybe you can come back to us if you have any question regarding it, and I will be happy to answer them on my side. So yes, so I have Alina just told me that we are out of time for this webinar. What I would suggest is that maybe, we don't have any constraints. We can continue discussing these different with these different questions. We can continue to handle them. Else, if you want to go, well, thank you first for attending to the first webinar of XWiki. It was kind of a pleasure, and I hope that you learned something during the two presentations that we did. And don't hesitate to get back to us. So either through the form that we'll send tomorrow in order to ask for your feedback, or directly by mail. So don't hesitate to come back to us. And do provide some feedback in order to make sure that next webinars that we organize at XWiki are maybe better, more organized, etc., etc. So thank you. I'm going to continue on the different questions. Question 8. So can XWiki also be used as a personal knowledge vault? It has already been used as such. If you don't mind having your data that is not encrypted, as I said before, in order to have some features working on XWiki, we cannot encrypt the data on the server side. What you need to do is to protect your XWiki instance and make sure that it's not accessible. However, we have the case of, we know a couple of people, either at XWiki SAS or within our community, that use XWiki as a personal knowledge base, and so it's working very well. And usually, it creates some use cases. I would say that the personal usages of XWiki are a bit different, and usually they tend to people that use XWiki for a personal manner tend to create specific extensions for their needs, which actually provide some diversity in the extension ecosystem. Question 9. How could you ensure the truthfulness of information in a wiki when you have a big organization with a lot of members? So is there a system to see who wrote, etc., or a way to include discussions or different opinions? So yes, to me there is two parts in this question. First thing is ensure the truthfulness of the information in a wiki. So you have you have the possibility to first, for any kind of document in XWiki, you have the possibility to look at its history, and usually it already helps a lot in order to see what is the current state of the document and when it has been modified for the last time, why, for which reason. I don't know if you've seen in my demo, but when you are modifying a page, actually you have the possibility to say why you modified it. And it allows you to have a clear understanding if you have this kind of tendency to fill in always this comment when you are doing a modification to a document. If you do so, you tend to have a very clear document history saying like, okay, I've added this part because of that, etc., etc., etc. So this is for traceability, really, of the document. Then, if you want to look more into making sure that the information that is being put in the document is true, then I would recommend using either the comments section of a document, which is really something that you can find in a lot of tools, especially in XWiki. In XWiki, we also have the possibility to do what we call annotation. So you have the possibility to highlight some text and make some comments on it, and then people can respond to your comment, etc., etc., etc. So I think that this answers your question. We indeed also have the possibility to integrate a workflow, as I said before, to validate. But that's, to me, that's more for advanced cases. Question 10. Is there any API that can be used to create a page or fill any information? Like for the meeting example, with Outlook, creating in the meeting page with all the person in it. Yes, indeed. So XWiki in itself comes with a full REST API. And we have a contrib extension project for building a GraphQL API also. Currently not stable to my knowledge, but I would say that the REST API is kind of the go-to for that, and we are using it every day on many different cases. And it allows you to create these documents, modify some properties of a document, and you could definitely create your meeting document as I showed it before using this API. The API itself is yes, and you can also create your own API, by the way, by doing some scripting in wiki pages, but it's more advanced, I would say. You will need to know a bit more about how XWiki works. And maybe in the share notes, we can, yes, indeed, you have in the share notes, you have the link to the REST API documentation. So you can look into it, and you will have tons of information on how to use the API. Using approved minutes. Can we build a form which generate and send an email once submitted? So you can build a form with approved minutes. Well, actually, it's what approved minutes helps you to do. It helps you to do document types, which are in themselves kind of a form. No, you will need to use a bit of XWiki knowledge in order to be able to send an email when a specific document is being saved or when you have a form that is being saved. And for that, I would advise to look at how XWiki's scripting works. What we also do as part of XWiki SaaS is that we provide some services in order to help you setting up that kind of modifications. So these are modifications that, if you want, go a bit outside of the scope of the extensions that can be provided within XWiki. And usually, for some of our clients, what we do is that we intervene with what we call architects and developers, people with prior experience with working with XWiki, and we help you modifying a bit the behavior of your wiki to implement that kind of very specific, that kind of specific feature that is not really provided as part of any extension up to now. As using a per minute, could we update an external database, Postgres, MongoDB? So it fits within kind of the same ID to me, meaning that to my knowledge, we don't have any extension that allows you to do that right now. However, what is very important is that these extensions within XWiki, and I'm going to be just a bit more technical for 1 or 2 minutes, these extensions within XWiki, they work by doing some scripting. And so XWiki has a ton of features within XWiki work with just doing some scripting. And you can, through scripting, make sure that when you update an entry in approved minutes, you connect to the database and you update this database. So that's something that is completely doable. Really, I don't have any doubt about it. However, it needs to have a bit of scripting. It can be some language in XWiki. Most of the time we use Velocity or Groovy, and it can also be something that you implement through Java. And yes, indeed, I think that it might be we already did a demo for that with with Elasticsearch, and there might be an extension for it in order to do that, but just for Elasticsearch. Then, so we have 3 questions left. Can a knowledge-based database be modified once the structure was designed at a late stage, as long as no existing field is deleted, but more fields are added? Yes. So with Apple Minutes, when you are creating your extension, your document type with Apple Minutes, you have this possibility to, once the application is created, you have one button which is about modifying the application. And what this button does is that it will walk you through some steps of the assistant that I showed you in the demo. And with these steps, you will be able to, say, add a new property to your document, and or maybe change the type of one property. So if you are just adding new property, it works well in the sense that you have the possibility to, your documents will have more and more metadata assigned to them. However, if you want to change the structure of your document, usually what we do in some specific case as part of XWiki SaaS is that we plan to do what we call a migration. And so a migration can be very simple to very technical, so I will not go into the details. But this implies mostly creating a script that is really dedicated to the use case of this migration. What's important to keep in mind is that as long as you are adding field, or if you want to delete suppress field, it's already doable with Apple Minutes with no issue. If you delete a field, of course, you may lose the value that you've added to all your documents, but it's still doable. For SaaS solution, do you provide health status? So RSS web page with XWiki service status. I don't think so as of today. I think that it's something that we have in the backlog. However, it's not something that we provide as of today. Maybe if Sylvia is in the chat, maybe which is in charge of our cloud, she might be able to answer this question more specifically. Yeah, nice. So yeah, indeed. So it's on the to-do list, and I'm sure that we will have it at some point. We are now in the process where we have a major cloud infrastructure, so we are indeed adding some of the features in this in the to-do list. Question 15, will you publish this recorded session and email the answers to all of the questions? So yes, indeed, it will be recorded as it is today, and we will send you the transcription of the session if you ask for it in the form that we will send tomorrow. So I think that we are finished with the question. If you have anything else, so yeah, if you have any other question that you might have forgotten to ask during this webinar, don't hesitate to ask them in our feedback form. Don't hesitate to contact us also directly if you have any other questions. We'll be very happy to answer them. And yes, if you have any needs, or if you are thinking about potentially using XWiki, don't hesitate to go to try.xwiki.com. Which is a platform, and you will have the possibility to either create a demo instance on our cloud, or to download a zip file. This is that contains a standard installation of XWiki, which is very similar to the one that I've used in order to do my demo. And that way you will be able to look into the more specific details of XWiki, see how it works, and see if it fits your needs. So yes, thanks everyone.